Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play the entirety of this video without any interruptions, and then I'll go back and talk about the things that are going on to better explain what's going on, and talk about things that I think that were done right and or done wrong. Without further ado, here we go.
Hello, I'm Officer Jolyn Lopez, Public Information Officer for the Mesquite Police Department. This critical incident community briefing is intended to provide you with information about an officer-involved shooting that occurred on the evening of January 31st, 2022. You are about to see relevant video footage and learn about other evidence and police procedures related to the case, so you can have a better understanding of what occurred, based on what we know right now. The Mesquite Police Department conducts very thorough use of force investigations, which typically require investigators to interview multiple witnesses, view numerous hours of video footage, and analyze a significant amount of forensic evidence. We are still at the early stages of this investigation, and our understanding of the incident may change as this additional evidence is collected, analyzed, and reviewed. We also do not draw any conclusions about whether the officer acted consistently with our policies and the law until all the facts are known and the investigation is complete. A word of caution: the images and information you are about to see may be disturbing. When a police officer uses force to arrest a suspect or defend against an attack, it can be graphic and difficult to watch. In addition, there may be strong language used by those shown in the video. Viewer discretion is advised, especially for young children and sensitive viewers. On January 31st, 2022, at 8:34 p.m., an officer from the Mesquite Police Department was on routine patrol in an apartment complex in the 800 block of Highway 30 in Mesquite. During the previous shift, that same officer received information from a license plate scan notification that inside the complex was a vehicle belonging to a subject who showed an outstanding warrant. The officer was following up on that license plate scan in an attempt to locate the vehicle in question. The officer located the vehicle and found that it was occupied. The officer was in full police uniform and operating a marked Mesquite Police Patrol vehicle as he exited his vehicle to approach, at which time the occupant fled on foot. The officer pursues the subject as he enters a breezeway in the apartments.
I got one running Mission Fairways apartment complex, white male wearing a white.
As the officer rounds the corner, he observes that the fleeing suspect has now stopped running, has turned and produced a firearm, and was in a shooter's stance, pointing the firearm at the pursuing officer. The suspect fires multiple rounds toward the officer, who returned fire as he quickly moves to cover while ensuring that the suspect did not escape from the rear of the building. The officer was not struck by gunfire. The suspect was struck at least 2 times. Now we will view the video from both angles uncut.
White male wearing
Shots fired, all units 38 feet. 58 copy.
Where are they at?
I got one running Mission Fairways apartment complex, white male wearing a white. Four letters, shots fired, shots fired.
The suspect was later identified as Joseph Butler, a 40-year-old male from Wichita Falls, Texas. Butler showed to have several active felony warrants out of another agency, as well as a parole violation warrant. Mesquite police officers attempted CPR and other life-saving measures. A Mesquite Fire Department ambulance was dispatched to the scene and departed with Mr. Butler for Baylor Hospital in Dallas at 8:45, where he was later pronounced deceased at 9:30. This tragic incident from the time that Mr. Butler was contacted and fled until the time the Mesquite police officer was fired upon by Mr. Butler was 8 seconds. Investigators recovered a firearm from the scene, identified as a CZ 9mm pistol and 7 shell casings from rounds fired by Butler. Investigators also located a vehicle in the parking lot that had been struck twice by gunfire from the suspect. The officer is a 3-year veteran of the Mesquite Police Department and was carrying a Glock 17 9mm pistol and fired 6 rounds. The Mesquite police will continue to investigate and analyze this incident. We will continue interviewing witnesses that may come forward and complete any forensic tests. After the investigation is complete, the investigation will be referred to the Dallas County District Attorney's Office for review. The Internal Affairs Unit will also conduct an investigation and evaluate the evidence to determine whether the officer's actions and use of deadly force in this instance followed department policy and procedures. Thank you for taking the time to view this critical incident community briefing.
All right, let's get into it. So this apartment complex, no idea what kind of an apartment complex it is. It appears to be a newer complex, or at least one that's somewhat upkept. There appears to be a walking trail here in the back. There is an interstate right here. Other than that, I don't know. I don't know anything about this apartment complex. But the fact that this dude is here makes me wonder why he's here. Is there someone living here that he's friends with? Are there other people like him? Other convicted felons, other shitbag kind of people? And that's the kind of risk that you run into when you live in an apartment complex. Now, not every apartment complex is in the ditches, so to speak. There are some apartment complexes that are nice. There's no problems. They have a good clientele, just good people not wanting to cause any problems, just wanting to live life and do things right. And then you have some apartment complexes that they're hell. Like, they need to be freaking dismantled and have all those people go somewhere else. There are some apartment complexes that the police department needs to have a police station within the apartment complex. They're that bad. Now, I don't know what kind this is. It could be a quiet place, and he could have just been pulling in there because he was trying to evade a police car because he saw one pass him, or he was just pulling in here because he's wanting to find a crime of opportunity. I don't know. If an apartment complex has a gate to it, a working gate, that can make the place a little bit better. It doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to be 100% better. If it's a college type of an apartment complex and it has a gate on it, that can kind of vary on the quality of the tenants there. If it's an apartment complex it's pretty much mostly families, and it's gated, chances are it's probably going to be less of a problem. And when I say families, I mean like working class families, like people who have established jobs and stuff. It's going to be probably a little bit more of a quiet kind of place and not many issues going on. Managing apartment complexes can be a difficult task as far as managing the safety and security, because it really depends on the property management and what their beliefs are and what kind of stance they take. what kind of company they hire to do security at the apartment complex. A lot of apartment complexes will hire security. Some of them will not, but they will allow local police officers to live there rent-free and or discounted rent, and they will list them as the courtesy officer, and that actually ends up helping them out on their insurance rates. Just because a police officer is living at an apartment complex doesn't mean it's a great complex. Not by any means. We have we had an apartment complex here in town, and this is a college town. There was two officers at one time living in this apartment complex, and they were allowed to, of course, have take-home vehicles. I wouldn't say all the agencies, but most of the agencies here in my area have take-home cruisers. And these officers who were living there, they brought their cruisers back home with them, park them there in an apartment complex. This was a college-oriented sort of complex. It marketed towards college students, and it also had some families and whatnot living there. Despite those police officers living in that apartment complex, this apartment complex was hell. There was all kinds of calls of police service. There were burglaries and robberies and even fucking shootings going on at this place. So just because a police officer lives there doesn't mean that apartment complex is going to be any safer than any other place. When these apartment complexes have these officers stay there as a courtesy officer, you have to keep in mind that they work their normal job as a police officer, which could be anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a day. Sometimes lots of overtime is included. When they come back home, they really don't want to get out and deal with shit. So they're not out walking around in the apartment complex looking for problems and trying to solve problems. They're going inside their apartment, taking the uniform off, and relaxing. There's some agencies that have restrictive policies on officers, and here locally, our city police department is a great example of that. They have some pretty restrictive policies on their officers when they are off duty. Basically, they don't want them doing anything when they're off duty. And it's written down in policy that they have to notify dispatch to have an on-duty officer in uniform come deal with the problem. So basically, these apartment complexes who have these city police officers living there as their courtesy officers, living there either rent-free or extremely discounted rent, basically only have them there as observe and report, just like they would have any normal big box security company there. So what are they gaining? Well, they're not gaining shit. In fact, they're losing out on rent when they could be having someone in there paying full rent. And these apartment complexes are the type that have a common living room and have like 3 or 4 bedrooms. And some of them will give an officer one of those units, and they'll stay in one bedroom, and the other rooms are vacant. No one else moves into them. That's a lot of money for one unit that has 4 rooms in it that could be generating a revenue. So I personally don't see why the apartment complexes do that from the realistic standpoint, but it really boils down to the fact that they don't know those policies exist. They don't know the city police department can't, or these city police officers off duty can't do anything, that they're restricted in what they do. They don't know that. They just assume that because they're a police officer, they can have their police powers fully enacted at any time. They understand that their agency puts limitations on them when they're off duty. So just because there's a police car parked at an apartment complex doesn't make it any safer. Another good example is there's another apartment complex in town, and these are 2 separate apartment complexes, but they were managed by the same management company. And that's another thing I don't think people realize is there could be a person who or an entity that builds an apartment complex, and they're not the ones who manage it. They actually will hire a company to come in and manage the apartment complex. And those managers can change over time, and those companies can change over time. But there were 2 apartment complexes, both ran by the same management company, and they had some vandalism issues going on. There was an officer living at one apartment complex and an officer living at the other. And these 2 different apartment complexes were right next to each other. Nothing separating them. Huge vandalism issues going on right under their noses. And the apartment complex hired private security to come in there and perform patrols. That security company crew went in there and immediately the first day start catching stuff. People trying to burglarize the properties, meth heads on the property, lots of different stuff going on that property. A lot of drug activity. People who don't even live there at that apartment complex catching a lot of stuff. And those 2 police officers who live there at that apartment complex, not even the slightest clue that anything was going on. They never came out. They never came out and did anything. They just stayed inside the apartment. I don't know why I went on that little rant. But hey, whatever. But yeah, this guy, why is he here in this apartment complex? I don't know. I would like the answer to that, just for my own curiosity's sake. So this officer has an automatic license plate reader on his car. These are little boxes that have cameras in them, and usually you will see them mounted to the trunks of vehicles. They're kind of rectangular shaped. There will be 2 on one side and 2 on the other. One's kind of tilted looking back, and the other one's kind of tilted off to the side. And you may also see them mounted on the roof racks. I don't recall if I've seen any on the hoods of vehicles. Normally they're on the trunk area. But these automatic license plate readers, they are continuously scanning, and the camera is run to a computer, and the computer has a program in there, and it recognizes the shapes of license plates. So as this car drives down the road or drives through a parking lot, anything that resembles a license plate that can be seen by the camera is recognized by the computer, and the letters that are inside this shape are recognized and ran through a program, and it goes through the database. And so this camera or cameras on the car, as he's driving by, they're basically just going click 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 continuously. It's nonstop. And the computer that these cameras run to detect all these license plates, and they detect the string of numbers in them and automatically runs them through a database until it finds a hit. They're really cool. They're also kind of expensive, which is why you don't see every single car equipped with them. It would be nice if they were a little bit cheaper, because they do. It's really nice that they're able to scan so many license plates like that and run them through the system without you not really having to do anything. All you have to do is drive, and then the camera and the computer does all the work for you. On busy highways and whatnot, that can be a great tool, because as an officer's driving, they can't be looking at a license plate, typing it in, looking at another one, typing it in, and doing all these searches. That's one, dangerous, and two, too time consuming. It takes too long to type all that stuff in, and it's ineffective. You can't, a person cannot perform that many searches that quickly. So these automatic license plate readers really save time in being able to look for vehicles that are wanted. And it's not just vehicles that are wanted for crimes and stuff. This is also for missing persons. Let's say older people who have Alzheimer's, they go missing, and a golden alert or a silver alert is issued for these older people who've just got in the car and took off. If an officer is on an interstate or a busy highway, well, they can't realistically look at every single license plate that's driving by them and know, oh, that one's registered to a missing person from one state over, 2 states over. There's just no way. That's a physical impossibility. So these automatic license plate readers allow for that. They continuously scan and run the license plates through database and come up with hits. And it's very effective, and it's a great tool to be able to use. Now, of course, there are people who advocate against it, and of course, these people are stupid. They're always wanting to argue about privacy concerns, blah blah blah, and this targets people of color, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. Same old bullshit from the woke liberal left, who have a propensity for hugging thugs. They want criminals to flourish. So of course they're going to complain about this kind of technology. I don't have a problem with this technology. Your license plate is on your car and it's out in public anyway. So what privacy issue is there? None. Anybody can take a picture of your car and your license plate. Who gives a shit? So he is parked in a handicapped parking spot. And he's not even parked in there correctly either. He's not even in between the lines. His lazy ass couldn't even pull in correctly. He's parked halfway in the zebra. Any time that I have ever dealt with a person who has illegally parked their vehicle in a handicapped spot, it's just a raging fucking douchebag. They seriously are. Anyone that I've ever dealt with who is illegally parked in a handicapped spot has been nothing but a fucking piece of shit person. They've all got a shitty ass fucking attitude. They're lazy as fuck. They're fucking scum. And of course it's no surprise that people like that would go park in a handicapped spot. These are the same type of people who go park in the fire lane at Walmart, Kroger, or any other shopping place and leave their fucking car and go inside to go shop. Like, how pathetically lazy are you to have to park in the fire lane or park in a handicapped spot when you're not handicapped? There is a direct correlation between piece of shit motherfuckers and people who park in handicapped spots and or fire lanes. Prove me otherwise. We'll go back to the raw footage. We'll get out of their talking part.
Shots fired. Audience.
Now we will view the video from both angles uncut.
So, watch him as he dismounts his vehicle and takes off running. He is reaching into his waistband. He is already going for his gun. He's already made the commitment that he's going to start fighting. As he goes into this breezeway, I'm confident that before he ever entered this breezeway, he made the conscious decision to turn and create an ambush.
Shots fired. Audience 38 feet. 58 copy.
Where are they at?
I got one running Mission Fairways apartment.
Now, it's going to be a little bit hard to pause it in the right moment because his jacket ends up covering the body camera multiple times. And I've talked about this before, body cameras and wintertime jackets. I wish that these uniform companies would start producing jackets that are more body camera friendly. Because if you think about it, the jackets that are being produced are the same style that have been produced before body cameras ever came about. To my knowledge, there is not a company out there right now that produces a winter jacket or outer garment that is body camera friendly. It would be nice if a company could produce a jacket that had a couple of slits on each side of the midline zipper that when an officer puts their coat on, that slit could be utilized to have the body camera sit outside of it. Much the same as police security style jackets have on the side of the coat a little slit in the coat so that the ends of that jacket can rest around the holster and allow the holster to be outside the jacket so the jacket doesn't end up hindering your drawing process with the gun. I do recognize that it would be kind of difficult for a company to produce a wide range of different jackets to accommodate how all these different agencies wear their body cameras, because there are a varying degree of ways that these companies or these agencies have officers wear their body cameras. Some wear them on the breast pocket, some wear them, and this would also depend on whether or not they have a traditional uniform or they're wearing a uniform with an outer carrier vest. If it's a traditional uniform, it varies from the camera being mounted on the breast pocket area to the left or right side. It varies from being mounted midline. It varies from being worn to the front of the belt. And with that, those can vary from magnetic mounts, it can vary from clip mounts, or it can vary from, depending on the manufacturer, if it's Axon, there is a mount that can sort of basically almost be permanently attached to the uniform, and then you can just rapid lock the camera in that way. For agencies that use outer vests, it can really vary on where that camera's placed. Some places it just seems like they find an open spot somewhere on the vest among all the pouches and stick it there. Some are up high, left of the shoulder, right of the shoulder, midline, more to the belly, more off to the left side of the rib cage, right side of the rib cage. So yeah, I could see how there could be a problem for some uniform manufacturers to make a jacket that could accommodate all those different positions. But there's a lot of agencies that have the cameras more or less midline. And so it would be great if a company could produce a jacket that would make it easy for officers to be able to have their camera poke out of a hole on that jacket and prevent jackets like this from covering up the camera and blocking the view. Or if they could produce jackets with tabs on them that would allow for easy mounting of a camera with a clip mount or a molly clip type of mount. And basically all the officer would have to do at that point is take the camera off their uniform shirt, put their jacket on, zip it up, and then put it onto that tab on the jacket. I've run into this problem before, wearing a jacket, trying to find that happy medium is very difficult because you start to run into issues like if it's what I would do is I would zip my jacket up all the way up to the point where the camera was, and then zip it up just a little bit more so that the zipper itself ended up resting under the backside of the camera, and the two sides of the jacket were drawn in closer to the body camera and were tucked in behind it. That was great because that kept the jacket in place and kept the camera free of any obstruction. It's able to capture all it can capture. The downside to that is I only have my jacket zipped up halfway. There's still from the camera going all the way up to my neck that's exposed. So if it's really cold outside, then I'm losing a lot of body heat that way. And lots of cold air, if it's windy, is coming in through that top side. Now the vest can help block the wind a little bit, help retain a little bit of heat to the torso there, but you're still having half a jacket on essentially, and you're losing a lot of body heat. I have since then started going back to the basics of layering system, and if you're going to follow the layering system method, you really have to pay attention to the weather forecast. Not just what the current weather is, but what the predicted weather is, to know how you need to layer. Because if you put on too many layers, then you're just going to be burning up and sweating a lot more. If you don't put on enough layers, you're going to be kind of cold and miserable and pissed off. So it's a balancing act. It really is, when you are trying to play the layering game as far as keeping warm and try to avoid using an external jacket. So I've got it down pretty good as far as the layering goes. There are times where I need to pull the jacket out and put it on. If I'm more of a static position, I'm standing outside for a longer period of time, I'll put that jacket on to help cut down on the wind. And that's really all that jacket is doing for me that I have. It's more of a wind resistant jacket. It does help keep in a little bit of warmth, but it's not really an insulating jacket. It's more or less a windbreaking jacket. So I'll throw that on if I'm out for an extended period of time and I'm not doing anything critical or anything like that. Other than that, I'll take the jacket off and I will just rely upon my layering system under my uniform to help keep me warm. If I know I'm going to something that's going to be more likely for me to be getting involved in things and hands-on and being more dynamic, I'm not going to put that jacket on. I'm going to leave it off. If it looks like it's going to be something mundane and lower chances of something going on, then I'll have that wind-resistant jacket on to help with the cold. But yeah, jackets obscuring the camera it's been a problem ever since body cameras came out. Wish there was a nice turnkey solution for it, but nothing has come about yet.
Where's it at?
I got one running Mission Fairways Park.
So he goes in there, and like I said, I believe that before he ever went through this breezeway, I feel like this guy had made the decision that he's going to turn around and ambush this officer as soon as he runs in there. And that's what happens. This officer has lost a visual of the bad guy at this point. He's really on his tail, like he's super close, but he's still lost visual. Anytime you lose a visual of someone, that changes things. Because in this obvious instance, he's creating an ambush. Would it have been better tactically for the officer to slow his pace as he's approaching that corner and very quickly, deliberately pie that corner? Yeah, it would have slowed him down. But would it have been better for him tactically? Yeah. He wouldn't have gone so deep into the kill zone. He would have been able to stay outside of that breezeway and be able to duck back in behind cover more and still engage the threat. So anytime someone has lost, has gone outside your visual range, that's something you have to think about is, are they setting up an ambush now? Have they pulled out a gun that I did not see previously? And although it's going to slow you down to do it, and you may end up losing them if they keep up running, but you need to more tactically approach corners like this. You just can't blindly run around the corner super fast into the kill zone. You have to pause it. Well, not completely pause it, but you have to slow it down, get that gun out, up, pow that corner, and then continue on. He's also, we'll back this up a little bit more. He's also already got his gun out. That, in my opinion, helped him as he came around this corner and got into the kill zone.
I got one running Mission Fairways apartment complex. White male wearing a light. One running Mission Fairways apartment complex. White male wearing a light.
Since he had his gun out, he was very quickly able to return fire to the threat. If he had had his gun still in the holster, he would not have been able to return fire as quickly and effectively as he did. But because he had his gun out and had it ready, he was able to return fire on this guy. He returned fire. He got 2 rounds on this guy. I think they said he fired 6 rounds. He hit this guy twice. And obviously they did I don't know where exactly those 2 rounds landed, but they did the job. And this guy ended up expiring afterwards. If he didn't have that gun out, I think that there is a good possibility this officer would have been dead. I don't think he would have been able to get his gun out of his holster fast enough to deal with the threat. He's got his gun out. He fires. When I replay the video, you can see his flashlight, his weapon-mounted light, the light beam in this area. You can also see the plume of the gun smoke coming out of the gun and being captured by the weapon-mounted light. I'll replay this again for you.
Where are they at?
I got one running Mission Fairways apartment complex. White male wearing a light. Running Mission Fairways apartment complex. White male wearing a light. I got one running Mission Fairways apartment complex. White male wearing a light. I got one running Mission Fairways apartment complex. White male wearing a light.
So he gets off the X. He is in the kill zone. He's in a bottleneck. That's not a good place for him to be. He returns fire and he gets off the X. As he's getting off the X, and somewhere at this point, I think that what's probably going through his mind right now is he just took contact. Now the bad guy is going to be continuing to run in the direction that he was fleeing. And this officer, I believe, is thinking that he can head this way and catch the guy as he's coming out.
Spoiler! Shots fired! Shots fired!
So he comes around here, points at this exit over here, which the freaking jacket keeps getting in the way. So this is an exit over here, and he gets his gun pointed at it, and what I believe is an anticipation of this guy to become running out this way, and he's going to get the drop on him. Obviously, it doesn't happen, and so he goes back to where he last saw the guy. Now, he doesn't immediately go right to that spot the way he came. He chooses a different route. He goes further out into the parking lot, and he utilizes these vehicles as cover. So he's moving smartly back to the spot where he last knew this guy to be. That way, if this guy was at this corner ready to fight him again, he's now got cover. He now has vehicles to be able to get behind and use them to stop any incoming rounds. So this guy is he's using the environment to his advantage. He's working the environment, and he is utilizing the vehicles as cover. He was trying to head around and catch the guy coming out, create his own ambush, so to speak. And of course that didn't work. He moves back, goes back to the kill zone, to the X. But he doesn't go directly, because he knows if he goes directly and he takes that same route that he took, ambush number 2 on him. So he uses the vehicles as cover, moves around, and gets a visual down the hallway. Now, I'm not 100% sure if after this shooting, this guy was still within this area after he shot him. If we back it up to where he is in the parking lot. Of course, when I pause it, the jacket's in the way. All right. It's hard to tell if this spot right here is a person laying down on the ground. It's really difficult to see. The clarity of the body camera is not great. So I don't know if he's laying right there. I would suspect that if he was laying right there, we would be hearing him yelling verbal commands out. So it's possible the suspect, after being shot, turned and moved, and then maybe fell out somewhere in the back over here out of view, and he just can't see him. I don't know. I don't know exactly where he ended up at.
The suspect was later identified as Joseph Butler, a 40-year-old male from Wichita Falls, Texas. Butler showed to have several active felony warrants out of another agency, as well as a parole violation warrant.
A parole violation warrant. Parole. That means this dude was in fucking prison. And some group of assholes decided, hey, we should let this guy out early. Let him out on parole. There seems to be a recurring theme in this nation. Shithole criminals being released early and committing more crimes and hurting people. Yeah. It's happening too much, folks. It is. This is going on too fucking much. It is like some parts of our society have embraced this idiotic hug-a-thug mindset. Like they are okay with these violent offenders, these shitbag criminals, just living amongst us. When people talk about justice reform, yeah, we need it. We need it bad. But we don't need it the way those people are talking about how we need it. Those people are talking about how we need it is we need to reform the police. We need justice reform for the police. No, the hell we don't. If anything, we need our police doing more police work. We need them out there doing more than what they're doing right now. making more traffic stops, busting more criminals. Where we need the justice reform is in the court system and within the prisons. That's where we need justice reform. We need to get hard on crime again. We need to lock these people up for longer periods of time, and we need the prisons to make it not so fucking enjoyable for them. There are some prisons and jails, it's like a fucking country club. These criminals don't fear going to jail or going to prison. They don't fear it one bit. It's not that bad. And even when they end up going to prison, they don't spend a whole lot of time there. When they get caught for stuff and they get final sentenced to 10 years, guess what? They don't do 10 years. They do way less than 10 years. That's the problem. That is part of the problem why our society, why larger townships, municipalities are having such a huge problem with crime. The criminals don't give a fuck about being caught. They really don't. Because they know they're going to get a sweet ass plea deal. They know they're going to get a reduced bond. They know that instead of it being a $10,000 cash bond, they're going to get a partially secured bond, a surety bond that's going to be way cheaper, something they can afford. They know that if they're charged with this, they can have the charges amended and changed down in a plea deal, and they can do way less time when they could originally be looking at a 10-year sentence for the one charge. They get a plea deal for a different charge, and their final sentence is now 5 years, and now they only got to do a year or two. We have to change how we deal with our repeat offenders in society. We have to change how we deal with these violent offenders. When you see stuff like this, it is most commonly people who have been involved in the criminal justice system multiple times. It's not their first rodeo. Not by any means. These people have been involved in the system for so long. They know the rules and procedures as good as the people who work in the fucking system. This guy, he don't work in a court. He don't work in a prison, but I guarantee he knows the rules just as good as they do. When you look at places like New York, Chicago, Louisville, Kentucky, Atlanta, Los Angeles, there's a common theme. The people in charge are predominantly associated with the same political party and ideological beliefs of that political party. Democrats. The Democrats are ruining this country. They are letting the criminals run amok. They're letting the criminals go out and victimize more people. And then they have the fucking audacity to say, well, he's not such a bad person. He was victimized as a kid. He's the real victim in all this. Bull fucking shit. I don't care what kind of sob fucking story you have. Piece of shit motherfuckers like this don't deserve to be out on the streets with the rest of us. Motherfuckers like this need to be locked away for the rest of their fucking life. And you know what? I'm glad this son of a bitch is fucking dead, because he tried to kill a police officer, and he should not have been put in the opportunity to fucking kill a police officer when his ass should have been locked away in fucking prison. The parole board, the people on that who made the decision to let this guy out, they need to be fucking fired. And in fact, when the woke liberal crowd wants to talk about ending qualified immunity, okay, let's do that. But let's start small. Let's start ending qualified immunity for the courts and for the fucking prisons, specifically probation and parole. Let's start ending qualified immunity for them. So when these motherfuckers release son of a bitches like this and they end up killing innocent people, well, then they can be fucking sued and lose everything they've ever fucking worked for because they wanted to make a stupid decision to release someone like him out on the streets. And then, once they've been sued and they've lost every fucking thing they've worked for, the next motherfucker who comes in to take that job, they're going to fucking think twice about releasing a piece of shit like this. I'm going to stop right now.
By Mr. Butler was 8 seconds. Investigators recovered a firearm from the scene, identified as
a convicted felon. You know damn well he didn't go into a gun store and buy this damn thing. How'd he get it? I don't know. This is another thing that I wish agencies would be more transparent about. Where are these fucking felons getting these guns? Now, in every single case, are they able to fully know where it came from? No. In the cases where these guns are stolen, and so long as their serial numbers haven't been defaced, they're able to tell if they're stolen or not. And I think that information needs to be released. They sometimes release it in the initial arrest reports and stuff like that, you know, in possession of, you know, stolen firearm, whatever. When it comes to the videos like this, there's not really a whole lot of explanation on where these guns are coming from. Now, I do know that there's a lot of guns that are stolen. And a lot of these criminals that end up getting caught with guns, they're caught with stolen guns. Where are they stealing these guns from? There's very few that are stealing them from actual gun stores. But the vast majority of these guns that are being stolen from people like you and I, law-abiding citizens. How are they stealing these guns? Are they stealing these guns when the people are carrying them and wearing them on their person? No. Not saying that's completely impossible, because it is possible. But it's unlikely that a criminal is going to go take this gun off of a law-abiding person who's carrying it concealed. Now, if they're carrying it open, yeah, they can make a grab for it. But what are the chances? What are the odds? They're pretty damn low. So how are they stealing them? They're stealing them when these guns are left unsecured. When people leave their gun in their center console of their car that doesn't even have a fucking lock on it, or they leave it in the door panel, or they throw it in the glove box and don't even lock the glove box. When people do stuff like that and leave it in the car and walk away, that's how these guns get stolen. And it makes it even easier for the criminals to steal these guns when you leave your car unlocked. That, plus house burglaries, where people leave these sitting on nightstands or inside a nightstand, unlocked, unsecured, completely operable. This is where those guns, the vast majority of the stolen guns, are being stolen from. They're being stolen by law-abiding citizens who are leaving their guns unattended and operable. Why are people leaving their guns in their cars? Why are people leaving their guns at home? Because of bullshit gun laws. That's why. Anti-gun zones, gun-free zones, are the reason why people are leaving their guns in their cars and at home. Workplaces that have an anti-gun policy. You can't bring your gun to work. You can't wear it with you. Those are the reasons why people are leaving guns in their cars and at home. If we would abolish gun-free zones and only add a penalty for using guns within certain areas as an enhancement, as a extra penalty, but allow for law-abiding citizens to lawfully carry concealed weapons into places, then we would see less and less guns being left at home and left in the car, because people would be wearing the damn things. If you're going if you are a person who has a gun for self-defense and you have a job that says you can't carry the gun with you, you could ask yourself, allowed versus able. You may not be allowed to carry that gun into your workplace, but you were able to. You may not be allowed, but you are able. So that's going to be a question and a decision that you have to make on your own. Are you going to carry a self-protection tool into an area where you know you're not supposed to be carrying it? I can't be the one to tell you to do that. That's something that you're going to have to do on your own. If you choose to leave your gun in your car or leave your gun at home, you need to do one of two things. You need to make that gun inoperable, such as putting a trigger lock on it or running a cable through the barrel, or you need to make it inaccessible. It needs to be either inoperable or inaccessible to unauthorized people. If you leave your gun at home and you go to work, you're gone from the house for 8, 10, 12 hours out of the day. Who's going to stop anyone from breaking into your home and taking that gun? No one. When you leave your gun at home and leave it operable and accessible to anyone and everyone who can just kick your door open, you are making it easier for criminals to get hold of guns. When you leave your gun in your car door panel, under your seat, in your center console, and don't lock it, or it doesn't even have a lock on it to begin with, or you put it in your glove box, same thing, don't have a lock on it, or it does but you don't lock it, you are leaving that gun accessible and operable to unauthorized people. Anyone with a rock can smash your window open your door, and start rummaging through your center console and open your glove box, or feel under your car seats and look in your door panels. If you leave your gun in your car and you forget to lock your damn car, anyone walking by can open that door, open your center console, and get the gun. You are leaving guns like this accessible and operable to unauthorized people. That is how the bulk of these guns are stolen and then used in street crimes. You are not helping the gun community, the gun culture, the self-defense community culture. You're not helping anyone. You're not helping these law-abiding people when you do stuff like this, when you leave your gun accessible and operable to unauthorized people. If you're not going to carry that gun on you, you need to lock it in a locked compartment. And if you can't put it in a locked compartment, you need to put a trigger lock on it, or run a cable through the barrel and make it inoperable, so that if someone takes the damn thing, they can't readily load a gun or a magazine into the gun and start using it. We know this guy's a convicted felon. He did not go buy this from a gun store. So where did he get it? He either A, stole it, he either B, bought it from someone who stole it, or C, he had a person who did not have a criminal background that would prevent them from buying it, gave them the money to go buy it, and they gave it to him. Or yes, he could have went and did a private sale, an individual to individual sale, and got it from someone who did not know that he was a felon. If you're not going to carry your gun, lock the damn thing up. You're making it too easy for these criminals to get our guns and use them in crimes and give more ammo to the anti-gun crowd who wants to take your guns away. Not much else to say about this video. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense, thank you for watching.